This is the Suunto Race. It's an endurance, performance-focused GPS watch with over 95 different sports modes, a bright AMOLED touchscreen display, and a massive battery life, all at the very reasonable $450, or in this case, the titanium edition, which cost $550. Would I suggest you consider this watch? Yes. Does it have significant shortcomings that you need to be aware of? Also yes. Okay, this is the Suunto Race. It is a very advanced, durable, and well-rounded GPS watch that is tested on US military standards, meaning that it's waterproof up to 100 meters. It's built from high-quality materials. In this case, it's titanium and sapphire crystal. But the Suunto Race also is available in a stainless steel edition and at a savings of $100. So just to be crystal clear about what we're talking about here, you can get the stainless steel edition of this watch, the Suunto Race, which is Suunto's top-of-the-line watch, which does include a sapphire crystal display, and that lens material should hold up against pretty much anything that you're gonna throw at it. I guess you could probably scratch it if you dragged your diamond ring across the massive 1.43-inch touchscreen display here, but you get all of this for $450. I think that that's just like a massive deal. The only other device that I can think of that really even comes close to this is the Amazfit Falcon, which costs $500. And that's a watch that I've actually reviewed on this channel. I'm happy to link it up here if you guys want to check that out. It's a great device, but trust me, this watch is a lot more polished. I think it's a nicer option, and it's actually less than the Amazfit Falcon. Okay, if you are seriously considering the Suunto Race, there's a few things that I think you're gonna need to know. This device comes in two varieties, like I mentioned earlier, stainless steel and titanium. There's a slight difference in weight between the two. It's 83 grams or 69 grams for the titanium edition. And then the titanium edition actually comes with double the memory. So it's mainly used for map storage, and it goes from 16 gigs to 32 gigs. The stainless steel edition also has a few more color options. There's an all black, midnight or dark blue, and a birch color. And then the titanium comes in charcoal, which I have here, and purple. The Suunto Race has a very bright AMOLED 466 by 466 pixel display, and I found it very readable, even in direct sunlight. The bezel has this kind of etched design, and then a plastic middle layer here, and then the back case is made of titanium. The watch band itself is 22 millimeter quick release compatible, so you can use what Suunto is offering. You can buy something different from Suunto, or you can buy another super affordable 22 millimeter watch band from Amazon. But overall, I've been really happy with the one that actually comes from Suunto here. Instead of a normal like watch keeper piece here, they've actually got this like little pin closure that you just kind of press in once you've tightened your watch. I like it. It seems to work pretty well for me. And overall, using this watch is actually pretty great. There's basically two main buttons. It's like two main buttons and a digital crown for scrolling through lists or scrolling through widgets or zooming on maps. Pressing that crown button actually acts as a third button or like a selection button in most of the cases. But the top button, it actually quickly starts an activity, and it actually ends up quickly starting an activity that you've most recently completed. So in my case, it'll quickly start a run, and it'll start looking for GPS satellites. The bottom button actually works as a back navigation throughout the watch operating system, but I also love that Suunto is using long presses on either of these three buttons really as like a quick button or like a customizable quick button. So if I long press the top button here, it'll actually pull up the flashlight, which is actually extremely useful. You'll be surprised at how frequently you use it, especially like for me, I notice it like getting up in the middle of the night and going to the bathroom. I just do like a long press on this and I can see where I'm going. But the bottom button here, you long press this and I've got it set to a do not disturb at the moment. The crown button, if you actually press this once, it'll actually bring you over to your heart rate. And then long pressing that will actually bring you over to the settings menu. And then from my main home screen watch face, I have a little battery life indicator here. You've got your date, you got your time, a little glanceable widget thing here at the bottom. Tapping through it will cycle through things like it's like your steps or your HRV, which stands for heart rate variability, your CTL, which stands for chronic training load, your TSB, which stands for training stress balance. All of those little metrics are helpful for optimizing your training stress in your own personal recovery. So you can scroll with either the scroll wheel on the digital crown, or you can use the touch screen. But scrolling up, you'll actually see all of these little different activity types that you can choose from. I've mostly been swimming, biking, and running with this watch, but you can see that there's actually a ton of different options in here. Scrolling down from the main watch face takes us into this widget area, which is actually really nice. I like it. You can actually see stuff like your battery life. You can see notifications, your heart rate, your blood oxygen saturation. You can see sunrise, sunset information. You can see the weather, you can see how many steps you've taken. You can see altitude information, sleep details, the digital compass, music, maps, and training status details. Actually, you can see a lot more than that, but those are a quick few highlights. And I should mention that you can control music from your smartphone, but I don't actually see any sort of way to add music to the actual device so that you could potentially like leave your smartphone at home while running with music or something like that. Or there's no way to have music coming directly from the watch into wireless headphones. It's a feature that's actually on a lot of watches kind of at this price point, but it's not here on the Suunto Race. Now, after each activity, the Suunto watch will actually ask you how you felt during that particular activity. It'll then look for patterns within your training based on all of that data, and it kind of shows you all of that information on the Suunto mobile application. In the app, you'll see stuff like HRV. HRV is your heart rate variability score, and it tends to be your heart rate variability score while you're sleeping. So that's the variability between heartbeats, and it's actually a little bit counterintuitive. But if your heart or your cardiovascular system is in need of more recovery, your score is actually lower, so your heart is less variable. But then it's higher when your heart rate is more rested and you're more ready to go. And that is, it's somewhat specific to you. And so your watch is actually going to take a little bit of time just to establish a baseline of where you're at. And then it'll start looking at that data and showing you if you're above average or below your baseline. But the app will also look at your training stress balance, and that'll help you figure out if you're well rested and really well recovered on a specific day to attack your specific training activity. And then it'll look at a broader chronic training load, and that is it's a little bit of a wider time frame, but it's actually looking at your current week compared to previous weeks and looking at the volume and intensity. It also uses Training Peak's training stress score to calculate a lot of these values. If you are familiar with Training Peaks, I think that you're really going to enjoy the way that Suunto organizes and presents the information in here. I actually really like the way that Suunto has everything set up here. You've kind of got this like summary or like an overview at the top up here. And using that mobile application, I didn't have any issues syncing data over to Strava, which tends to be my preferred platform for posting any of the activities that I do. I also generally love the sleep tracking in the kind of morning report on this watch. I don't know if they really call it a morning report, but it'll show you just how much time you spent sleeping. It'll show you the sleep stages. Again, I don't put a ton of weight into that, but it'll also show you your resting heart rate, which I think is good to look at, and a few other details like that HRV score that I was talking about. The mobile application also has a map where you can create routes, and you can actually look at a heat map of information to see where other people have been running, biking, or hiking. It'll also import routes from Strava, all of which I found very easy. I had routes ready to go in Strava, and it just picked these up, and it was able to sync these over to my watch. Now, I've always felt that Garmin watches tend to do the best when it comes to mapping and navigation, but overall, I've actually been very impressed with the mapping on the Suunto Race. And these are downloaded offline maps, so even if you're off-grid, you should be able to find your way on the trails. The race also has routing and navigation. It'll show you a breadcrumb path of where you've been. And you can use that digital scroll wheel and the touchscreen to make like zooming and panning on the maps pretty easy on this device. And I will say, while mapping is fairly battery intensive, I've actually been very impressed with the battery life on the Suunto Race. As far as like general use goes, we should see somewhere between like 6 and 8 days with the display set to always on, or 12 days when you have it in that like raise to wake mode. And to me, it actually feels like I've been getting at least 6 to 8 days. And I tend to do about an hour or so of GPS intensive activity per day. But there's a little bit more to battery life than just like your everyday wear. Here, check out this chart. So we have everyday usage, but we also have some details on how GPS intensive activities affect the battery life. But you actually have the ability to put your GPS activity into these 4 different battery modes. So there's like a performance mode, an endurance mode, an ultra mode, and a tour mode. And in each of these, there's a GPS mode based on what battery mode that you've selected. And Suunto actually just calls these GPS modes best, good, okay, and low. But I actually imagine that these GPS modes kind of correlate to something like multi-band mode or all system GPS, GPS only, and then some sort of ultra track mode. And these battery modes, they're actually pretty cool. Each of those 4 modes, performance, endurance, ultra, and tour, each of them are made up of about 9 metrics that are set up for optimizing the battery life. So it's made up of stuff like how often the data is logged, the display being always on, the display brightness, the optical wrist heart rate monitor, the touchscreen, vibrations on the watch, and the Bluetooth connectivity. And I've been using this watch in the performance mode, and I've been getting some really fantastic GPS results. If you go back and you watch some of the videos on this channel, you'll hear me say stuff like, Apple and Garmin tend to have the best GPS tracking on the market, but I actually really think that we should consider adding Suunto to that short list of very good GPS devices. Overall, I've mostly been running with the Suunto Race, and it does provide running power, which is nice. It'll also show cycling power. If you have a cycling meter, it connects over Bluetooth. I do wish that the Suunto Race had some sort of Ant Plus option. To me, it just doesn't feel like the overall market is embracing that technology going forward. Definitely doesn't seem like things are trending towards Ant Plus, unfortunately. But I also swam with the Suunto Race, and it does a decent job of tracking laps when you're just doing normal swimming. But you actually might run into issues if you do any sort of drills while you swim or any sort of kick sets. At least that's what I've noticed personally, and I do tend to do drill sets and kick sets within most of the swims that I do. But that seems to be the case for a lot of the watches that I test, and it's a shame because to me it doesn't feel like it would take a lot of development work to add a drill mode to these watches. A drill mode where you could like go through a kick set and then specify the distance of that kick set, for example. And that would actually end up giving you the overall correct distance for your swim, whereas without it, you end up, missing a few laps. Other things that I would love to see changed here. I'm not super in love with the way that this device charges. I do like being able to just slap a watch down on the magnetic charger here and have it charge, but I do wish that you didn't have to orientate it to a specific direction to kind of line up the charging pieces here and get it charging. And I mentioned this before, but there's no onboard music on this device. It's not a huge deal breaker for me personally. I don't tend to listen to music directly from my watch. I will say that, yes, a lot of watches at this price point do include onboard music on these devices. And then I also mentioned that I like the way that you can put this GPS into those 4 different modes: performance, endurance, ultra, and tour, and that each of those affect about 9 different metrics on your watch. But I'd actually love to see you be able to make up your own custom category. So maybe I want maps, but I don't care about GPS accuracy all that much, or some other random combination of all of these 9 different metrics. And I don't know, maybe that's something that you can actually do on this watch. Maybe you can do it through the mobile app, and I just haven't been able to figure it out. This is actually my first time testing a Suunto watch on this particular channel. So let me know if you guys know how to do some of this stuff. But easily, the biggest issue that I've noticed with the Suunto Race is the heart rate accuracy coming from the optical heart rate sensor on this device. I have seen some fairly bad heart rate data while testing this device. Here, check this out. Now, I will typically use a watch that's connected to a chest strap. It's kind of like my known good or my control for heart rate testing, typically because chest heart rate straps tend to be the most accurate. But in this case, I'm testing the Garmin Enduro 2 that's connected to a chest strap, and then I was testing the new Coros Vertex 2S here on my right wrist, and then in blue here I have the Suunto Race. So it's off in the first mile or so, and then it kind of does okay for a little bit, and then it looks pretty far off around mile 3, and then off again around mile 3.5 again. And this is probably one of the better data sets that I have for the Suunto Race. I actually had another outing where the Suunto Race was much further off. Here I have the Enduro 2 again connected to the chest strap, and then I have Garmin's Epix watch that was using its wrist-based optical heart rate monitor. It's another watch that you actually might consider if you're looking at this watch, the Suunto Race. But then the Suunto Race is just kind of crazy high for a lot of this run. So overall, I will say that if you are just using this and you're looking at like general heart rate tracking when you're at rest or when you're at sleep, or if your arm is stationary and you're not moving it a lot, I think all of that heart rate data is gonna be fine. But when you're moving or while running, I would say it's not nearly as reliable. Now, this one issue doesn't mean that the Suunto Race is not worth buying. Here, this is a heart rate strap, $24, connect it to your Suunto Race over Bluetooth, and just like that, the Suunto Race is gonna have as accurate a heart rate tracking as anything else on the market. So overall, I think I would still highly recommend the Suunto Race, especially at that $450 price point. I mean, I just don't think that you'll typically find anything like the quality of this watch with these materials and these features at that price point. I mean, I just think it's super impressive. Looking at a few comparisons that you might want to consider, you might find something like the Garmin Epix Gen 2 that I mentioned earlier. You could find something like that on sale for $600 or $700. Which I think is a great deal. You've also got devices like the Polar Grit X2 Pro, which is $750, and then the Coros Vertex 2S at $700. Also a decent option, especially if you're looking for a watch that has extremely long battery life. But I really am enjoying this Suunto Race. I definitely think it's worth considering if you're primarily focused on running or even ultra running, and if you like the design here. And personally, I do. I like the way that this watch looks. But what do you guys think? Do you like the way that the Suunto Race looks? Is this a watch that you would personally consider? Have you ever used a Suunto watch before? Let me know in the comment section. The comment section is right below the like button and the subscribe button down below this video. And either way, GPS watch or no watch at all, I really do hope that you're getting out there, swimming, biking, running, rinsing, and repeating it all over again. And we will see you guys on the next one.